In the year 2105, humanity reached Mars in just 12 days instead of 7 months. By 2110, we had permanent bases throughout the asteroid belt. By 2115, the first human explorers reached Saturn. But none of this would have been possible without a revolutionary material called Uzo Steel, the legendary metal that changed everything. And none of it would have happened without a small community of Biafran metallurgists who combined thousand-year-old traditions with cutting-edge science to create the most important material of the 22nd century. This is the story of the Igbo Metallurgists, how they transformed human civilization and took us to the stars. For over 1,000 years, the Igbo people of Biafra were known throughout west of Kemet for their exceptional metalwork. Iron smelting in Igbo communities dates back to at least the 9th century, with unique techniques passed down through generations. What made Igbo metallurgy special wasn't just the quality of their iron tools and bronze sculptures. It was their unique approach to metalworking as both science and spiritual practice. Traditional Igbo smiths didn't separate the physical from the metaphysical. Each metal had a spirit. Each forging was a conversation between the smith and the material. Certain rituals, certain plants added to the furnace, certain words spoken during forging, all were considered essential to the process. By the late 20th century, these practices were at risk of disappearing as industrial manufacturing replaced traditional methods. But a few families in villages across Biafra maintained the old ways, even as they sent their children to universities to study modern engineering and materials science. Dr. Adana Okeke was born in 2048 in the small village of Umunze in Auka province. Her grandfather was a respected blacksmith who taught her the traditional methods while encouraging her academic studies. After earning her PhD in materials engineering from MIT, Okeke worked for NASA and later the European Space Agency. Her research focused on developing lighter, stronger materials for spacecraft construction, the holy grail of space exploration. After 15 years abroad, I realized I was looking in the wrong direction. Western materials, science was hitting walls. We needed a completely different approach. So I came home to my grandfather's forge. She once said in an interview in 2081, Okeke shocked her colleagues by resigning from her prestigious position and returning to Biafra. She established a small research center in her home village, combining a traditional Igbo forge with advanced laboratory equipment. She began systematically documenting the traditional Igbo metallurgical techniques, examining them with modern scientific methods. Okeke was particularly interested in an obscure smelting process used for ceremonial objects. It involved a special clay for furnace construction, specific hardwoods for fuel, and ritual additives, plant materials, added at precise moments during smelting. The elders described a metal they called spirit iron. It was rarely made, used only for special ritual objects. They said it remembered its shape, could heal small cracks, and never rusted. It sounded like science fiction, but I'd learned to listen, said Professor Okeke in an interview. Most intriguing to Okeke were the plant additives. Different plants were added to the furnace at specific moments in the smelting process, accompanied by rhythmic hammering and specific chants. Western metallurgy would dismiss these as superfluous rituals, but Okeke suspected there might be real material effects. Working with ethnobotanists, Okeke analyzed the traditional plant additives and made a startling discovery. Many contained high concentrations of rare elements and unique organic compounds not found in plants outside the region. After 3 years of research, multiple failures, and dwindling funding, Okeke was under pressure to show results. The breakthrough came unexpectedly in June 2084. Using electron microscopy, Okeke discovered that iron processed with the traditional methods exhibited unusual microscopic structures. The plant additives weren't just rituals. They were introducing complex carbon nanostructures and rare elements into the metal in precisely controlled ways. What Professor Okike discovered was that the traditional process was essentially creating a naturally occurring metal matrix nanocomposite. The rhythmic hammering at specific temperatures, combined with the introduced elements, created a self-organizing structure at the nanoscale. Okike realized that the traditional smiths had developed, through centuries of trial and error, a sophisticated nanotechnology without modern instruments. By combining their techniques with contemporary science, she could potentially create something revolutionary. She modified the traditional process, using precisely controlled electric heating instead of charcoal, and synthesized the key compounds from the plant additives. After hundreds of attempts, on June 17, 2084, she produced the first sample of what would later be called Uzo Steel. The sample was small, just 10 centimeters square and 3 millimeters thick, but its properties were unlike anything seen before. Initial tests showed properties that seemed almost impossible. The metal was 1/5 the weight of aluminum, but stronger than the best titanium alloys. It could withstand temperatures from near absolute zero to over 3000 degrees Celsius without losing structural integrity. Most remarkably, Uzo Steel, named after Okike's grandfather, exhibited limited self-healing properties. Minor damage to its structure would repair itself over time as the nanostructures realigned. And unlike other ultralight materials, it absorbed radiation instead of being degraded by it. According to materials engineers, what makes Uzo Steel revolutionary is its cellular nanostructure. It's not a single material, but a complex matrix that behaves almost like a living system, with different properties at different scales. The atoms are arranged in a pattern we'd never seen before, one that shouldn't be stable according to our previous understanding of metallurgy. Perhaps most important for spaceflight, Uzo Steel was exceptional at absorbing and redistributing kinetic energy, meaning it could withstand micrometeorite impacts that would puncture conventional hull materials, and its radiation-absorbing properties offered improved protection for astronauts. When Okike published her findings in 2085, many in the international scientific community were skeptical. The properties, she claimed, seemed impossibly perfect, and her methodology, combining traditional techniques with modern science, raised eyebrows. While international scientists debated, the Biafra government recognized the potential immediately. In 2086, they established the National Advanced Materials Institute in Enugu, with Okike as director and an initial staff of 20 researchers. The first challenge was scaling up production. The initial samples were tiny, and the process was complex and difficult to control. For 2 years, the team worked to develop industrial-scale production methods while maintaining the material's unique properties. According to the engineering director, we couldn't just build a bigger traditional furnace. We had to rethink the entire process for mass production while preserving the precise conditions that created the nanostructure. Professor Okike insisted that we hire traditional smiths as consultants. Their intuitive understanding of the process was invaluable. By 2088, the first Uzo Steel production facility was operational in Enugu. It was unlike any metal plant in the world, combining cutting-edge technology with design elements from traditional Igbo forges. Most notably, many of the operators were descendants of traditional smiths, specifically recruited and trained for their inherited knowledge. The first industrial production run created enough Uzo Steel to begin real-world applications testing. The results exceeded even Okike's expectations. By 2090, word had spread throughout the aerospace industry. The European Space Agency, having once employed Okike, was first to secure a partnership for using Uzo Steel in spacecraft construction. NASA, China's CNSA, and Russia's Roscosmos quickly followed. The first major application was the hull of the ESA's Ganymede probe, launched in 2092, a technological feat made possible through the partnership between the Biafra government and the European Union. The probe's Uzo Steel shell allowed it to carry less radiation shielding and survive Jupiter's intense radiation environment far longer than planned. According to the European Space Agency mission director, the Ganymede probe was designed for a 6-month mission. It operated for over 4 years. The Uzo Steel hull not only protected the instruments from radiation, but actually absorbed and converted some of the radiation. The Uzo Steel hull not only protected the instruments from radiation, but actually absorbed and converted some of the radiation into usable energy. It was a stunning validation of the material. The implications for human spaceflight were immediately apparent. Spacecraft built with Uzo Steel could be lighter, faster, and offer better protection from the two greatest dangers of space travel: radiation and micrometeorite impacts. In 2095, the Biafra government, through the help of the United States of Kemet, established Uzo Global, a public-private partnership to manage the production and distribution of the revolutionary material. The nation made a critical decision. They would not monopolize the technology, but would instead become the world's primary producer and a partner in all major applications. According to the Biafran governor, Uzo Steel belongs to humanity's future, but it was born from Biafra's past. We will share this technology with the world, but production will remain here, providing opportunities for our people and a recognition of our contribution to human advancement. By 2110, permanent bases on Mars were under construction, with Uzo Steel as the primary building material. The material's properties were especially valuable on Mars, where radiation protection was essential for long-term habitation. While space exploration captured public imagination, Uzo Steel also revolutionized defense systems. By 2100, several nations had developed armor and vehicle protection using the material. Lightweight Uzo Steel armor offered previously impossible protection. Vehicles could carry more effective armor while maintaining mobility. Personal armor could stop high-velocity projectiles while remaining light enough for extended wear. The security implications were enormous. Uzo Steel didn't make weapons more deadly, it made protection more effective. The material shifted strategic thinking toward defensive rather than offensive capabilities. The Kemet-led coalition led an international initiative to prioritize defensive applications, providing Uzo Steel for UN peacekeeping operations and humanitarian missions. By 2115, the Uzo economy had transformed Biafra. Enugu, once a modest regional city, became a global technology hub. The Uzo Steel production complex employed over 50,000 people directly and supported hundreds of thousands more jobs in related industries. The Biafran government invested Uzo Steel revenues in education, establishing specialized schools and universities focused on materials, science, and engineering. A new generation of Biafran scientists and engineers built upon Okeke's breakthrough, developing variations of Uzo Steel for specific applications. What's remarkable about the Uzo economy is how Biafra managed it. Rather than allowing a resource extraction model where foreign companies took the material and profits, they built an entire knowledge economy around production and innovation. Perhaps most significantly, the traditional communities that preserved the metallurgical knowledge were full partners in the new industry. Villages like Okeke's native Umunze maintained their cultural practices while participating in the most advanced technology of the age. One of the village elder once said in an interview, "Our ancestors knew the spirit of metal. They spoke to it, listened to it. Now the world listens to us. Our children go to universities and work with spacecraft, but they still know the old songs of the forge. The knowledge flows both ways now." In 2115, 30 years after Okike's breakthrough, the first human mission to Saturn departed from Mars orbit. Professor Adana Okike lived to see her creation take humanity to the outer solar system. Before her death in 2122 at age 74, she established the Ancestral Knowledge Foundation, dedicated to exploring other traditional technologies through the lens of modern science. Inspired by Uzo Steel's success, research teams around the world began examining traditional technologies from various cultures. Today, in 2130, Uzo Steel has evolved into dozens of specialized variants. Biafra remains the heart of production and innovation. The journey that began in a village forge has transformed human civilization, enabling us to become a true spacefaring species. But perhaps the most profound legacy is philosophical. The story of the Igbo Metallurgists reminds us that wisdom comes in many forms, that the knowledge of our ancestors may contain answers to our most pressing questions, and that the future and past are not opposed, but deeply connected. As we stand on the threshold of the outer solar system and look toward the stars beyond, we carry with us not just the metal forged in Biafra, but the lesson it taught us. The path forward sometimes requires us to look back, and the knowledge we need most might be the wisdom we nearly forgot.